With football season upon us now, there's a lot happening in the news, so be sure to subscribe to my other channel, JG9 News, where I give you up-to-the-minute updates on everything happening in the NFL in a completely relaxed, unscripted format, and I give my thoughts on everything taking place around the National Football League today. And now, on with our feature presentation. Want to hear a funny joke? Concussion protocol in the early 1980s. Today, concussion protocol is something taken incredibly seriously, and it's been one of the defining legacies of Roger Goodell's time as commissioner. If you have a concussion, simply put, you don't play. A concussion is more than just a headache. A concussion isn't something you just fight through and shake off. If there is something wrong with your brain, you are not getting back out there and playing until you are cleared by the doctors. In the 1980s, however, yeah, that was not the case. Concussion protocol may have well been a doctor saying, "How many fingers am I holding up?" And you didn't even need the right answer. You just needed the Alex Trebek answer in Celebrity Jeopardy on SNL, where you just had to write a number, quite literally any number, and you won. You passed the test. There are some things of the 80s that people want to go back to, from MTV playing music videos, to IBM's You Make the Call appearing during games, to college football conference alignment. But concussion protocol is something that is, very clearly, not going back to what we had before. However, one of the purposes of this channel is to do just that, and talk about some of the weird and wacky things in NFL history that have been lost and forgotten throughout time. So if you like that sort of stuff, then be sure to hit that like button down below, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel, because we post every single day on here. Thanks in advance for your support as we try and grow this community and reach 70,000 subscribers. Case in point, the man you've been watching this whole time, a running back on the New York Jets by the name of Bruce Harper. Harper had an incredibly solid career for the Jets, especially considering the fact that he was an undrafted free agent. The man played 8 seasons in the NFL, all with the Jets, and he recorded over 4,200 yards from scrimmage. He was an absolutely lethal kick returner, leading the league in kick return yards for 3 straight seasons from 1977 to 79, becoming the first player in NFL history to lead the league in this category in 3 consecutive seasons. And he led the league in all-purpose yards twice, doing this in 1978 and 1980. Anytime you're an undrafted player and you end your career playing nearly a decade for the same team while amassing over 11,000 all-purpose yards, you did something right. You did something awfully right, I'll put it that way. And over the course of his fairly productive career, Bruce Harper found the end zone a grand total of 21 times. 1 of them came on a punt return, 12 of them came on receptions, and oddly enough, even though he was a running back, just 8 of them came on rushing attempts. And today, we're focusing on one of those 8 touchdowns, because to say that this one was insane would be putting it lightly. Imagine a player duping a doctor into faking concussion protocol in order to get back on the field, despite not even being remotely healthy or capable of playing, only for said player to score a touchdown when his team needed him most. And this isn't your typical duping to get around concussion protocol, because I guarantee you, whatever you think Bruce Harper did, it's even stupider than that. It feels like something straight out of a comedy skit. That's how insane it was. Because this is the story behind Bruce Harper, the 1981 New York Jets, and one of the dumbest and craziest touchdowns in the history of the franchise, as well as the craziest touchdown, bar none, in Bruce Harper's great NFL career. Before I talk about what happened in the game between these 2 teams behind me right here, I just have to make a disclaimer, especially for any of my younger audience members who play football and play sports, and they love it right now. Do not try this at home. Do not try what Bruce Harper did at home. Concussions are very scary. You do not want to play through a concussion. Your brain is too important. The game is not worth the rest of your life. Do not try this at home. This video is strictly an educational video to teach you about what the early 1980s were like. Informational video like I do on the channel in terms of telling you what NFL history was like and some of the weird and wacky stuff that happened in the day that you might not know about. Do not try this at home. I cannot stress that enough. Do not try this at home. Before I talk about the actual incident in question, we need some context to understand what was happening in the game at hand, as well as the game's overall importance. It's October 18th, 1981. It's week 7 of the NFL season, and we've got a massive game on our hands over at Shea Stadium in the AFC East between two in-state rivals in the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets. Yes, they were in-state rivals back then. This was one of the final years you could say that and not have people saying that they played in different states. For the Jets, to say that this game was absolutely massive would be putting it lightly, and not just because it was a division rivalry game. The Jets started the season off with an abysmal 0-3 record, including a loss in Buffalo to none other than the Buffalo Bills, who defeated them by a final score of 31-0. At the time, no team in NFL history had ever made the playoffs following an 0-3 start. However, to New York's credit, they had clawed their way right back into the race by winning 2 of their last 3, and tying the Miami Dolphins in Week 5 without a blemish since the start of the autumn. With the win, the Jets get back to 500, and are right back in the thick of things. Lose this one when you already had no room for error, and when there are 8 teams with 4 wins already fighting for 5 spots in the AFC, and you've got 2 wins, your playoff hopes take a massive hit, if you even had any to begin with. Win this game and get revenge, you beat a rival, and you stay alive. Lose this game, and good luck. Good freaking luck. And the bad news for the Jets on this 55-degree October day was that halfway through the game, they were trailing 7-6. Obviously, it wasn't quite going as poorly as the first meeting, but it wasn't going great either, with 2 Pat Leahy field goals inside the red zone in the first quarter being all that the Jets had to show for their offensive ineptitude. As a side note, to learn more about Pat Leahy, click the card in the upper right corner. And a big reason why the Jets couldn't get anything going in the first half of this game was because this man right here, Bruce Harper, had to leave after the first drive of the contest. Harper played the first drive, which was New York's best of the day. They started deep in their own territory, they drove down the field, and they got all the way to the 7-yard line of Buffalo before settling for 3 points. Harper even had a big third down catch on the drive that went for 23 yards to keep the chains moving. But at some point during the drive, Harper got injured and had to go to the sideline with a concussion. I would show the play, but in all honesty, I have no clue how it happened, nor does the coaching staff, and nor does Harper himself know. Said Harper, "I really don't know how it happened. All I know is that I was having trouble remembering my plays. I had to ask someone what was going on. I was dazed, so I decided to come out of the game. There were no hard hits to the ground, there were no incidents where anyone led with the helmet, and there was nothing to the untrained eye to indicate that there was one particular play where Harper got the concussion. It was probably just taking a gradual series of hits, but in terms of one singular hit causing the concussion, that was not the case whatsoever. And it was clear after that first drive, especially considering the fact that the other 3 points came with the Jets not having to drive that far, and with the Jets already starting off with great field position, that without Bruce Harper, they were going to struggle on offense, and they were going to struggle to win the contest and keep their season alive. They needed Bruce Harper out there, and Harper, being an athlete with that natural competitive drive, and not thinking about the long-term ramifications of what could happen if he goes back out there with a concussion, wanted to be out there too. However, in order to get back on the field, Harper needed clearance from the team doctor, Dr. James Nicholas. In theory, Nicholas was supposed to be one of the best in the world and a top-notch medical professional. He spent 4 decades with the Jets and was the one that operated on Joe Namath and basically saved his career. In theory, the man should know what he's doing. And to be fair to Nicholas, he did tell Harper that in order to get back on the field, he had to pass a concussion test. Nicholas did not feel comfortable at halftime setting Harper back out there for the third quarter unless he could pass the test. Said Nicholas, he was dizzy and not sure of his plays. The coaches came to me and wanted to know if he could go back into the game in the third period. So how do you think the concussion test went? Usually, it has something to do with recall, or something to do with counting, and to be fair, This test involved counting. All Bruce Harper had to do in order to pass the concussion test and prove to the doctors that he was okay was to count backwards in increments of 7, starting with the number 83. Easy enough, right? Even if you have to think about this, for a person who doesn't have a brain injury, this should be doable. You go from 83 to 76 to 69, nice, to 62 to 55 to 48 to 41. You get the idea. And if Bruce Harper could name those numbers and count backwards accordingly, he'd be able to get back on the field and play. So how did Bruce Harper respond? He said, and I quote, "Doc, I can't do that, and neither can you." Seriously, Harper decided that the best answer to give on his concussion test was to pull out the Uno reverse card. The doctor said, "Do this." Harper said, "No, you." And in the words of Kronk, Dr. James Nicholas responded by saying,
"Well, you got me."
And with that, Bruce Harper was let back into the game. Somehow, I kid you not, this was an acceptable answer to the concussion test. Somehow, by refusing to answer the question, Dr. James Nicholas thought that this was acceptable and that he was all right. Can you imagine if life worked like that? Seriously, can you imagine if the world actually worked like that? Let's say you go into your boss's office asking for a promotion, and your boss says, "Can you increase our efficiency by 10%? Your response is to say, "I can't do that, and neither can you." And your boss says, "Wow, you got me there. You're 100% right." That's just the kind of leadership and drive we need at our company. Congratulations, you're promoted. Or let's say you're taking a test in school, and there's a math question asking about a triangle proof, and you have to prove that two sides are congruent. So you write on the test, "I can't prove that, and you can't do it either." And your teacher says, "You know what? You're right. I can't prove that they're congruent. You get an A+. Like, this is absolutely baffling. The best way to pass a concussion test is by getting the question right. But apparently, the second best way is to not answer the question and insult the doctor's intelligence by telling him that he's dumb and couldn't do that and is too stupid to count backwards by 7s. How does this work? Genuinely, how the heck did this strategy actually work? This is somehow a dumber, "I can't believe this worked" moment than the freaking Chewbacca defense. That's how dumb it was. But just like that, Bruce Harper was back in the game, concussion and all because he couldn't count by 7s. But then again, neither could the team doctor. And as for what happened next, you guessed it, he scored a touchdown. Because of course he did. Was this story going to go any other way besides that? Come on. Bruce Harper's first touchdown of the season, his first rushing touchdown since 1978, and the longest rushing touchdown of his career at the time, came while he was badly concussed, as he broke through for a 29-yard score, which helped the Jets take a 13-7 lead. From that point on, there was no turning back, as the Jets proceeded to stomp their foot on the gas and lit Buffalo up in the second half, getting back to 500 by winning it 33-14. From down 1 at the half to up 19 by the end of the game, all because Bruce Harper provided the spark that the team needed, even though Harper had no idea that he even just did that. The Jets beat their division rival, and all it took was their running back to insult a doctor to do it, combined with the doctor being hilariously incompetent. And amazingly enough, I kid you not, guess who was awarded a game ball for his incredible performance? That's right, the team doctors! The freaking team doctors actually got a game ball for not doing their job and for sending a guy back into the game with a concussion, even though the man in question did not pass any concussion protocol whatsoever. Yeah, the 1980s were a completely different time. As a side note, let's check on how Harper is doing today as a result of the Jets doctors and the game ball being given to them. Shocker, he's not doing great. Said Harper back in 2018, "You can't play football for 8 years in the NFL without some head trauma. You know what I mean? I've been knocked out on 3 different occasions, and I know I have my issues. Whether they've been diagnosed yet or not, I know I have my issues. So, good job there. You really did the man a service. Obviously, Harper's going to want to go back on the field. All athletes have that competitive spirit and that fire and that drive. And all athletes are going to want to go back out there in a situation where their team needs them and their team is struggling. So I can't blame Harper for this. To be honest, you know when you do something thinking it has no chance of working, and it actually does? It wouldn't shock me if that's what happened here with Harper. This is all on the doctor. This is all on the Jets and their incompetence. Hope it was worth it. Hope that game ball has a giant asterisk on it more than 4 decades later. And even though the Jets would win the battle in the game between these two teams behind me right here, taking it in Week 7 off of Bruce Harper's ill-advised efforts, the Jets would go on to lose the war, as the Buffalo Bills would have the last laugh. The Jets and Bills met in the playoffs that year, meeting in the wild card round at Shea Stadium, and what was the final playoff game ever at Shea Stadium. You can learn more about that game by clicking the card in the upper right corner. The Bills won that game by a final score of 31-27, and you're never going to believe what happened in that game. As the Jets were driving down the field, Bill Simpson made a critical interception for Buffalo in the red zone, and turns out he had a concussion. He had no business being out on the field, so after the Jets won a game against the Bills because one of their players made a big play, the turning point of the game, with a concussion, the Bills won their playoff game over the Jets by doing the exact same thing. The 1980s, everyone. The freaking 1980s. If you are watching this video and you're an athlete and you're thinking about emulating Bruce Harper's brilliant strategy from 1981 to get back on the field when you have a concussion, number one, don't. Just don't do it. With what we know about the brain and how valuable it is and how serious concussions are, do not try this at home and do not even think about trying this. This is one of those absurd stories that I had to talk about because of just how crazy it was. But it's not something that should be celebrated by any means or replicated. It's just really unique because it's really stupid. However, if you are going to be dumb enough to risk your brain and try and play with a concussion, this is probably not the best strategy. Your mileage may vary in terms of insulting a doctor to get on the field. If a doctor tells you to do something, it's probably a good idea to do it. This was maybe the only time in human history that a player disobeyed a doctor's orders, and the doctor actually allowed it. Because on this October day in 1981, when it came to that third quarter run to win the game, the Bruce was loose, both on the field and in the head. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.